This is West Tigers Radio live after tonight's match at CommBank Stadium, where the West Tigers went down to the Storm 26 points to 16. Let's go live to Parramatta and Eddie Otto. Eddie.
Thank you, Joel. Yeah, live out here. Melbourne winning 26-16 after the West Tigers led 10-4 at halftime, joined by Declan and Steve. Post-match, Declan, I'll come to you first. Was that an opportunity missed tonight?
Yeah, I think it was. I was very disappointed in the second half. I think they scored 22 points in that second half. So that's not to mention the injury toll for Melbourne in key positions. So I think it was 100% an opportunity missed to break their record in round one.
Steve, leading 10-4 at half time, and then Marlo scoring that try. Looked like we had all the momentum.
Yeah, it did. It was looking really positive there for a while. But, unfortunately, we gave away too many penalties in the ruck and a few unforced errors in the early stage of the second half, and then it was momentum loss. And once Melbourne got a sniff and got that momentum, and a bit of luck too, I'd say, then it was shut the gate.
We will get to some of the positives, boys, because there were some tonight. But Declan, the goal line defence still struggled. I don't know, haven't obviously seen the game on TV, but being out here, I think they were probably on our goal line maybe 6 times and come away with 4 or 5 tries.
Yeah, in that first half, it didn't really seem like they had many opportunities, but they were pretty clinical in the first half. And then in the second half, you're right, they had a ton of possession on the line, and they just, every time they went on our line, it felt like they came away with points or some sort of victory, which I think was probably the exact opposite for us, because we were probably a little bit inefficient in that 20 zone for Melbourne, against Melbourne, sorry.
Steve, what did you make of the overall defensive performance? Looked like the effort was there, but just struggled with the Storm attacking our line.
Yeah, when you look at it, you take a little bit of the emotion out of it. A 10-point loss to the Storm, where we competed for most of the game, is a pretty good effort. This is definitely a different Tigers side. They've got more to them than what we've seen in the last couple of years, that's for sure. But it is disappointing when the same mistakes do come back to haunt us, and that's that. Defence out wide, but we got caught short out wide because we weren't quick enough to reset our defence in the middle, and therefore dragged in our outside defenders, and therefore short. And then, as I said before, those errors, costly errors, and penalties, giving away those penalties in the ruck. And that's just been our Achilles heel for years. So it's a different Tigers team. There's no way all the predictions of run and last are going to happen based on tonight's effort, but we didn't get the points.
Yeah, it was a typical round one game in some respects, where there were a lot of 6 agains. Even Melbourne, Declan made a lot of errors. What about our halves combination, Brooks and Hastings? I thought both fair without either really standing out tonight.
Yeah, I think that Jackson Hastings, he had a solid debut. I wouldn't say he did much incredibly. I thought he combined really well with Dane Laurie for an awful limits try, but besides that, probably no standouts. And I thought that Luke Brooks had a really good few touches when Ken Mamalo scored his second try, I believe. He got into the defence. He really looked like he was engaged in that one set. But other than that, to be honest, I think that it was kind of disappointing for both halves, especially when you compare them to what Jerome Hughes was doing on the other side of the field. I think we were showing what an elite halfback looks like in this competition.
Yeah, well, it was interesting to watch, Steve. At first glance, it didn't seem like our halves combined an awful lot. What did you make of their combination and performance?
Look, I thought in the first half they did. They initially we didn't play that Lockett pivot role, and we were playing our halves at first receiver, but it was an extremely wide first receiver. I did notice a number of times that the second half would wrap around at the first half, and our 7 would go to 6, or 6 would go to 7. So they weren't playing either side all the time. So that was happening. And then the minute Pleaching came out, he did go into that pivot role, push Brooks and Hastings wider, which looked good in the first half. But I don't know. I have to look at the game again, but we seemed to go away from it in the second half because we didn't seem to play with that same width. But I reckon that's probably because we were on the back foot a lot of the time once we lost momentum.
Ken Marmalo, Declan, he was probably my man of the match at first glance. 2 tries, and he nearly had another where he was held up over the line.
Yeah, he was amazing. Those 2 tries where he scored was really, really good, especially the second one. It was just pure athleticism. But I think the thing for me that was most impressive was his meters out of dummy out of yardage, because I'm not really too sure the stats in front of me, but just being there at the game, he was just really impressive. Every time he got the ball, he carried a few Melbourne Storm defenders when we got the ball back off kicks, and it was just really, really impressive.
Steve, some of the other outside backs, I thought Noffa had a pretty good game, and Gildart and Roberts, there were glimpses there, but probably maybe not enough.
Yeah, they were both guilty of unforced errors when they were trying to push the pass. But yeah, I'd agree. Gildart, stepping inside a number of times, he looked dangerous when he did that. Roberts was showing a turn of speed when he had a little bit of space, and did look dangerous without making huge yardage when the opportunity presented itself. So yeah, they look dangerous in attack. And considering that our combinations will get better, as these guys play together more, there is something there to be positive about.
Looking at the forward pack tonight, Declan, I don't have any of the stats in front of me. Obviously, I haven't been out of the game, but both back rowers again look really dangerous. Tuilagi set up the first try. Was there any other forwards is there a standout for you there tonight in the pack?
It's really tough because I think they all played really, really well in that first half. I think Musgrove, Stefano, I think they're all really, really good. But then a lot of it was undone in that second half, especially with that Hughes try, with a lot of lazy, in-the-middle efforts. So it's kind of hard for me to pick one forward because I think that a few of them could probably be accused of some lazy play in that second half.
What about you, Steve? What did you make of the forwards?
Yeah, pretty much the same as what Declan just said. I thought the first half that they were awesome. Really, really aggressive. They were on top. They were absolutely on top at half time, and then in the beginning of the second half. But as has been the case for a very long time, we just couldn't sustain it for that 80 minutes. And what seemed to happen towards the end of the game, well, the second half of the game really, was Melbourne really, really slowed us down when we had the ball. They jumped, they got numbers in tackles, they jumped all over us, they were slow to get off, and they weren't being penalised for it. So I don't know why we weren't doing the same, because we weren't slowing them down in the ruck in that second half as much as they were slowing us down. And I'd have to look at the game again to try to work out why, but that went a long way to why, Melbourne got on top through that momentum up the middle.
Yeah, I just thought the way the game swung, I just thought it was a little just disappointing, or just feeling flat, Declan, because they did, I think, have Brandon Smith. I arrived after about 2 minutes. I think he had already gone off apparently with a broken hand, and they lost George Jennings with a knee after 20 minutes. So they were down to 15 after 20 minutes. So I just felt like, at 14-4 up, if we're ever going to beat Melbourne in a round one game, tonight was the chance.
I think if you look at this game and you just look at the score, I think you could probably be forgiven for thinking, it was only a 10-point loss to the Melbourne Storm, that's all right. But I think if you look at the context, it is a little bit embarrassing because, as you said, Melbourne, a lot of key players out in key positions, and we were leading by 10 points at half-time, then balled it, conceded 22 points in the second half when we had so many opportunities to win that game. We just the same old rubbish in defence, and it's a little bit deflating, to be honest.
Yeah, frustrating. Steve, just going back to the spine for 1 minute, I thought Jake Simpkin competed hard. I don't know about the quality of his service, but he definitely goes in there and have a go. And Dane Laurie, he again competed, but probably made a couple of errors towards the end of the game.
Yeah, he did. I agree with you with Simpkin. He didn't set the world on fire, but he was in there having a go. I noticed he got bumped off a few times, but that's to be expected. He's not a huge man. But the spine is still a work in progress. Again, we've had this conversation so many times, and I come out, and promote Luke Brooks. But as far as our half and 5'8" went in that second half, getting control of the ruck is a big thing, but again, we just didn't seem to take control of a winning opportunity. We didn't just kick to the corners and hem them down right in their end. We let them back into the game, and that's been a problem for a long time. And there's 17 players that are responsible for that, but your halves do have to have control of the game. And when we're ahead by 10, we should be controlling that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to. I know, Declan, you were on Brooks' watch tonight. It looked like a typical Brooks game for me, where he ended up with a few dead ends running the ball. He was responsible for helping that first try out. His goal kicking's a worry as well. I mean, he didn't strike him too well with a boot.
Yeah, I think it was one of those things where you could probably point to a few good moments in the game, but I think overall he was a bit quiet. And he also missed that tackle on Hughes, that break that led to the Xavier Coates try, I believe, as well. So I think all in all, it was a pretty disappointing game from Brooks. And yeah, I think the kicking is a bit of a concern because he didn't really look like he was confident with them. So that'll be interesting to keep an eye on in the coming weeks.
All right, boys. Well, probably just about to wrap it up. Steve, you were out there a bit earlier tonight. You hosted an ambush event, which was successful, apparently.
Yeah, we had a great event. So we probably had I don't know, maybe 60 people in the room. I'd reckon. Yeah, we had one of the bars there, and we ran a quiz and we did a bit of a podcast Q&A. Session and involving some of the people that were there as well, and then Justin Vasco stopped by and Gary interviewed him for 10 minutes, which was really positively received. So yeah, it was great. It was a great event before the game, and looking forward to our next one.
All right. Well, Declan, what did you rate that performance out of 10? Just finally, I'm probably going somewhere between a 5 or a 6. Steve probably sounds a little bit more positive than we do about the performance.
I'm gonna give it a 4. I'm pretty shattered at the moment because I really did think we could win that, but just the same old rubbish that we see from last season just crept up in the second half. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a 4.
Steve, Declan's gone a 4. What are you giving it out of 10? That performance on first look.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't be more positive than a 6. I think, first half I would have given an 8. Second half I'd probably give a 4. So does that average out at 6? It probably does, doesn't it?
Yeah, I suppose. Then Newcastle next week, Declan. It's up there at Marathon. I don't know what they call it now, but they were red hot today, Newcastle. So I suppose it doesn't get any easier. Even they're going from Storm to Newcastle, you're probably playing a side with more fit troops.
Yeah, but I suppose we beat them in similar circumstances last season. I think we'd lost the first game against the Raiders, and they were red-hot favourites against us up in Newcastle. So let's hope that Killin Ponga picks up an injury so we can be more of a chance. But, I think they'll bounce back. I think they'll watch some signs that it just needs to be more sustainable going forward.
All right, boys. Well, thanks for joining us tonight on West Tigers Radio. We'll be back tomorrow night with a full podcast with probably Gary as well, who was out at the game, reviewing this game, obviously, and looking ahead to next week when we take on the Knights. So thanks for joining us, boys. Have a good night.
Cheers, Eddie.